Wait a few seconds for everyone to join. Good to go.
We're good to go. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody that is out there joining us today. My name is Stacey Harris. I am the Outreach Program Manager for Military Spouse Jobs, which is I think, a very unique nonprofit organization that assists military spouses with job placement and all kinds of other great things, which I don't want to get into today because we want to get right to our topic. But Spouse Nation is a program of military spouse jobs, and we are so proud of this program because we know that military spouses are unique. We have very different needs than our wonderful veterans, but our main goal and our big, quote we like to share is we want to keep you employment ready until you're ready for employment. And that's our goal at Spouse Nation. But we also know that remote work is just a hot topic right now. It's a great option for us military spouses. So we have two great guest speakers joining us today. But first, I'd like to introduce my partner, Melinda Rao, who is the Senior Outreach Program Manager with Military Spouse Jobs and has helps me with the Spouse Nation program. Amy Rossi is also with Military Spouse Jobs. She is, which was originally named Military Spouses Corporate Career Network, and she is one of the founding members there. And she is the director for the training department. And Erica McManus, who we have had a lot of fun working with, is the COO of Instant Teams, which I think is another really unique organization that supplies remote work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this over to Melinda. I will let you all know that we are recording this event, so we will be sharing it later. But Melinda, I will pass this off to you, and we will get started with today's topic.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, and I hope we have some great information for you. I do want to cover just a couple of housekeeping things just so that we can get as much participation from you as possible. You'll see over on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a chat option where you can actually chat live with the other participants. There is also a question option. So if you have questions, we ask that you put those questions in that question box, and Stacey will be monitoring that for us so that we can add those questions to our discussion today with Amy and Erica. So I'm going to get started. I just want to tell you a short little bit about myself. I am a military spouse, and I did take a 11-year break from working. That was our family choice, and then decided to go back to work with the permission of my family members, and had a great career working for the Marine Corps, and now I'm privileged to be working for Military Spouse Jobs in their outreach department. So I'm excited to be here today. So let's get started. I want to start big picture with both you and Amy and Erica and talk about exactly what does it mean working from home. There are a bunch of different kinds of work from home, remote work types of situations. Could you both kind of give us an idea of what those are and define those for us? And I'm going to start with you, Erica.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think there's always the personal, like what remote work means to me and how I make it work for my family and our military lifestyle and how I got there. But there are broader definitions. And I think it's so important to understand what remote work means to you and then to know how to ask the right questions to get where you need to go. Because I see remote work on like a scale of flexibility. And just because you're working 100% remote from home does not mean that necessarily the role is going to be flexible. You might still have an 8 to 5 shift where you are at a desk. You have to have a quiet working space. You just have the commodity of being your own home, right? A little more accessible, but still, in the daily grind of a full-time job. And then there's, the scale kind of opens up from there. There's part-time work, there's freelance gig type of work, there's entrepreneur. So lots of different types of remote work. And I know we can kind of get into the definitions of what those look like really specifically. I know Amy does a great job with defining that, and you guys have great training programs. My best advice is just to always empower people to understand what you need. And if you don't know, ask the right questions. Like, here's my lifestyle. Here's when I need a break. Here's when I need to be able to leave the house, or I don't have childcare. What kind of work is right for me in a remote work setting or a work from home setting? It's that self-awareness. I think that gets people, right? You just like, oh, remote work, I'll take it. Not really realizing maybe what you're getting into. And everybody wants to be set up for success from the beginning when you go into a new role. So self-awareness, understanding what remote work means for you. And Amy, I know you've got really great definitions of what all that looks like.
Yes. Amy, tell us exactly what those mean.
So I guess you can break down work from home from like a technical perspective, and then, like what category does it fit into? And I'm going to really when it comes to the labor market, it's a complicated affair. So I'm going to oversimplify it and just say that in general, there's 5 different ways that you can create income streams working from home. You have hourly work, which is considered more blue collar, where you're trading your time to someone for, specific things. You have salary-based work. You have commission-based work. You could be the entrepreneur working at home where you're getting paid in profits. And then you could also be an investor where you're investing in things and then keeping your dividends. So if you look at work in, oversimplified, the way that I like to break down work from home, though, is trying to find a stream of income that A, works for your family, but B, you're getting paid in a way that you desire. You can also break it down in ways that you get paid. You get paid either as a W-2 employee, where you are working directly for a company. You can get paid as a 1099 contractor, where you are getting paid for projects you are completing for others. That's a little bit more flexible, obviously, than W-2, where you're on a set time schedule. Or you could be an entrepreneur or consultant or investor of some sort, where you're getting paid the profits of what you do. So I really like to break it down into, you can be an employee, you can be a contractor, or you could be an entrepreneur where you're sort of a little bit more in control. Obviously, from a structure of flexibility, an entrepreneur hasn't the most flexibility. Contractor is a little bit in the middle, and then W-2 tends to be the most structured in terms of work.
Okay, that's great. I actually really liked the term that you used, creating income streams working from home. And I think maybe that helps to create a context and what this actually means. So I think that that's a great way of putting it. So Erica, I have been watching Facebook, because we're on Facebook all the time, we're on social media all the time, and I actually see some of these on LinkedIn as well. And there are organizations and companies that do advertise work from home opportunities. How do I know if that's the real thing?
That's a big question. But it's actually one of my favorite topics, because we can do so much as a community to protect each other. And I think that's, like any word of mouth passes through the community. Like, we need to do a better job of sharing that information and stopping people in their tracks when they're about to interview or go towards a remote work scam. And it's hard. And this year especially, right? It's become increasingly hard, because there are really, really smart people out there creating very legitimate looking scams both ways. I, as an employer, have been scammed by people looking to work remotely, which is an interesting side of the table to be on.
Wow.
But most of my experience has been helping spouses navigate through, or even the repercussions of going through a scam all the way to where now you've lost your identity. So the 2 things that I think out the gate that are the biggest red flags is if somebody asks you to jump on a Google chat interview, I would say 99.99% of the time, that is not legitimate. That is, you have no face interaction, right? It's not a phone call. Google chat interviews are purely textual. So you're just typing back and forth to somebody. And I have yet to see that turn out in a legitimate way. So if you even Google chat remote work scams, like all kinds of information out there. So anytime I see somebody, on LinkedIn or in a Facebook group say, hey, I'm about to hop on a Google chat, interview, I'm like, pause, let's not do that. Because what plays out then is an interview that might seem legit. You might be answering really great questions. Then they're going to follow up within 2 minutes after this interview make you an offer via email, and then they're going to send you a packet or an information that says, hey, in order to onboard you, we need all of this information. Passport, routing information, driver's license, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, I got a job. I'm so excited. And you send all of that, radio silent, your bank account might be drained, your identity's gone. Now you have to go to the FBI Internet Crime Report site and file.
Oh
and this happens to spouses daily. And I don't think people talk about it because then you're like, it's almost like a shameful, like, oh my gosh, I just got tricked, right? Like it's embarrassing. But it happens, and we got to stop each other from, making that happen. And the hard part is, you go through those steps of, okay, I Googled the company looks legit. Googled the HR person that I'm supposed to be talking to on LinkedIn. Sometimes those are phished. So they're going to use the real name of the person, but you don't know who you're talking to because it's through a chat box, right? The second one is like the WhatsApp app, or different kind of like textual writing apps. If you're asked to do an interview for those, most of the time that's not going to be a legitimate experience at the end. So it's hard, but use our resources, right? Use Facebook groups, reach out to people like, hey, do you think this is legit? I love seeing that in Facebook groups, and spouses like send a screenshot. Hey, I've been asked to do this. And the more and more we see that now, people are like, no, stop, don't do it. Like, it's not legit. And it's hard because it preys on the desperation for income. It preys on like, I want a career. This is a great opportunity for me. And that's how scams and hacks work, right? They're playing off of emotion. So kind of like filter out the excitement and kind of go to like a logical kind of vetting process when you're approached with those types of opportunities, because unfortunately it's a real problem.
Wow. Amy, did you have anything to add to that?
I think that there is a myth versus reality of information out there. There are a lot of people that I don't want to say that they perpetuate untrue information, but a lot of people will make very vague, generalized statements to sum up work from home that do not necessarily fit the picture. For instance, people will say, if you have to invest any money in something, it's not a legitimate work from home opportunity. And, as we talked about, there are multiple ways that you can build streams of income working from home, depending on the type of income coming in and the category that falls into. There may or may not be some responsibility on your part to provide various things that you need, like maybe you have to get an upgraded computer, or you have to provide a certain level of internet, a telephone, an office with a door. So there may be requirements, a headset, So what you have to do, like Erica said, is make sure that you have your spidey sense turned on. If it seems too good to be true, or there's anything that feels funny about it, research it, right? Research it. Google it, ask a friend, make sure that, you feel good about it, number one. Number two is going to be to make sure that you understand where it fits and what your responsibilities and what the role entails, right? So ask the questions and start with legitimate places. True? I mean, try not to let people pick you up, on LinkedIn or various sites. You want to start with legitimate resources and then build from there.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you want to ask a question yet, but this feels like this is the right time. So the question just came in, and they're asking about, what about the Indeed app? When a company sends you an open position that maybe you are good, and they ask you to apply on Indeed, and the details from the company are confidential. So that's probably a good question for you ladies.
Yeah, I mean, Indeed is a legit site, right? Like, it's a great organization, but like any great organization, people utilize the platform and the service for the negative. And so that's what's happening if you do have a bad experience through Indeed, is especially with remote work, right? Those scams happen mostly with remote work, is somebody is hacking into Indeed pretending to be a legitimate company and then reaching out to people, to take them through whatever that process looks like nefariously on the back end of that job offer. So again, it just comes down to vetting. Utilize groups, utilize the tribe mentality, right? Like take it to somebody else, ask the right questions. And any legitimate employer will be fine with you asking a lot of questions. If you're invited to a Google chat and you say, hey, I'm not comfortable interviewing with somebody through a text-based, application only, is there an opportunity to schedule a Zoom call, or is there an opportunity to get on the phone? It's professional, right? You're asking your own question, you're presenting yourself as a logical thinker. And if they say no, then it might not be the right place for you to continue going.
Okay. Amy, did you have anything to add in regards to the question that came into our box?
In this instance, Google is your best friend. If somebody is contacting you and it doesn't feel right, Google it. If somebody else has had a bad experience, it's likely that they have already reported it online or somewhere else. So before you do anything, do your due diligence, and protect your identity, protect your information. Make sure if you're sending out information to unknown sources, that you are, maybe you use a name and a telephone number. Don't put your address, don't put your birthdays, don't put, your social, like I have seen people put social security numbers, birthdays, addresses.
Yeah.
A lot of confidential information. You don't know where your resume is going, so protect your information.
Yeah. I'll add real quick too, because in the remote workspace, I'm always asked, well, at some point I'm going to have to give private information, right? Like in order to be enrolled or onboarded as an employee, you do have to give information. So at what point is that, should I feel comfortable with that? So at Instant Teams, for example, like we use a payroll provider. So you're going to get a link to a platform where you sign in, and it is an actual company onboarding experience. That is where you put in your information, right? That's how you get paid. You got a job, you want to get paid, you're going to have to give over information at some point. So again, like to Amy's like demystification of never give PII out. At some point working remotely, you're going to have to give your information, but it should be through a legitimate site. And you can even Google, what's an actual payroll provider? If you get a link from Paycor or Paylocity saying, this is the company's payroll provider, go Google it, right? That's a legit payroll provider. So just wanted to kind of be sure that people do know at some point you're going to have to give information. Just be sure it's in the, the appropriate way.
Yeah, I just meant upfront. I mean, if they start asking you upfront, or if you're flying your resume around with that information.
Yeah.
And I know another thing that as military spouses, we might be asked to provide at some point is a copy of our military ID, which is no. Do not provide a copy of your military ID. That is not required. So that I appreciate hearing that, how to legitimize and how to check on those sources and those portals. The other thing I will say is, as a tribe, we have created some amazing resources for our tribe that are professionals that you can ask these kinds of questions. You can ask these questions of the company that you are applying for, but then you can also ask these questions of these groups of professionals and see what their input is on this as well. So again, our tribe, we do take care of our own. We work really hard to create those safe spaces so that we can ask those questions and get those answers. So thank you for those. I do want to move into something, and this might be a tangible way of learning how to work from home. I know that the last year, almost year and 3 months, about 15 months has been very, very challenging, especially for women in the workforce right now. We have an incredible number of women have left the workforce. We don't know exactly how many of those are military spouses, but for a variety of reasons, COVID being the big one, we have left the workforce. And so these work from home dreams are things that many of us are looking for. So what are some of the myths about work from home? And let me give you some context. When I first started this job working from home, because we don't have brick and mortar, I had to figure out, again, like Erica spoke of earlier, what that looked for me and what the expectations were of me from MSCCN and military spouse jobs. What did they need from me? And how was I going to create that work from home environment for my life and my circumstances? So I know that I thought it would be, oh, I'm just going to roll out of bed in my pajamas. I'm just going to open my computer and I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to have all kinds of amazing things that I can do. And, so scheduling was tricky for me, figuring out what the expectations were. So talk about some of the myths. And Amy, I want to start with you and demystify what this is and how we do this successfully.
I think success starts with planning. Number one, you have to understand if you work for a W-2 employer, you're going to be required to work specific hours, specific days, and at specific times, versus what the expectation is if you are working for, a contract, right? You're going to have to provide the deliverables that you have on the contract to the employer. And you have to build a schedule around what the expectation is. Number one, if you have young children, you're going to need to figure out some childcare, right? Because you're not going to be able to work, take care of a child, and do other things. Number two, you need workspace that everything is in one space. For example, if you've got your office in your bedroom, you've got your supplies in the attic, and then you've got your printing materials down in the basement, it's not a productive. You have to look at your house like you would a business or office. You want all of your materials in the right space so that, you can maximize your productivity. So you just want to make sure that you, A, have a legitimate workspace, and B, you understand the expectations in terms of hours and deliverables.
Okay. Erica, do you have anything to add about those fairyland myths that we all have about working from home?
Yeah, I think the very first thing I said, it just still rings true, is like awareness of what you need to do, the type of work you need. Last year, right before, COVID happened, we had written up a core flexibility policy and a childcare policy at Instant Teams, right? We're remote, but we have customers across the nation, and, you've got to be able to focus on your job. Like, this is for W-2 employers, right? Like, you're here to help drive the business and help drive opportunities for the community. And then COVID happened. We're like, okay, well, we'll just hold on, at that point, it's just like survive, right? Like, figure out a way to make it work. I think one of the biggest things that people often don't think about is like, there's a family training component that you have to have and you have to be aware of. You can't just start working remotely one day and not communicate that to the rest of your household, no matter how old they are, up to spouses and down to toddlers. Because most of the time, the military spouse in the home is kind of the person who is keeping the household running. And so when you're removing yourself from that dynamic, if you have not communicated that or even put a change management process into place, it's going to create a lot more stress, at least at the beginning, than you probably want. So communicating schedules, like I have a shared Google Calendar with my spouse, with my teenagers, so they know when I am working, when I'm available. If you call me or text me and I don't answer, it's because I'm on a call. Right at the beginning of COVID, I had like a stoplight system outside of my door where it's like green, I'm just, on a call with a team member working, you can come in. Red is like, I'm on something live, do not open that door right now. So I think people just assume, oh, I can work from home, and it just fits into the natural flow of the household. And it for the most part, it doesn't, unless you're consulting or, blogging and writing and just doing things at night when everybody's asleep. Like, it's a glorious time to work. At least for me. So just being aware of the training and the family component that you need to, be sure you've got a little hold on as you jump into the remote workspace.
Okay, that's actually great information. I was very fortunate. I started this remote work after all of my kids had moved out of the house, so I didn't have to have as many training sessions with my family members.
Maybe with my husband though, because he assumes if I don't answer the first time, he should call back 2 or 3 more times.
Yes.
I'm not answering because I'm on a work event.
Yeah. And I also want to point out there's another dynamic that happens when you work from home too, is that one of the struggles that people find is balance, right? There's not a good amount of balance. You could actually, because your office is there and all your work is there, I do find that you can overwork yourself. Like you can't detach from it and you can't do the thing. So number one, it's, there's a productivity factor of making sure that you've got a schedule, but there's also, there has to be a self-care aspect of this where you are also making time. I know one of the things that we used to do early on, and I still do it to this day, is called Pomodoro, where I time block myself in 25-minute work blocks, where it's 25 minutes of work, 5-minute break, 25 minutes of work. So that could be another system that you can use from a work perspective.
How many of you had service members that ended up working from home for a period of time at the beginning of COVID?
My husband lasted 2 days. Luckily, he was essential, so he could go back to the office, but he lasted 2 days and then took the rest off. And now he has never again ever come home and said, how come this isn't done while you're working? Because now he understands.
So that's part of that learning curve. My husband worked from home for about 3 months. He was essential, but he worked from home for about 3 months. And I would have to go into his office just about every night at 10 o'clock and say, shut the computer. So yes, I appreciate your notes about self-care, Amy. I think that's important because, again, many of us as military spouses, we're the have-to parents. We have to make sure all the kids are taken care of. We have to make sure the meals are taken care of and all the errands and all of those other have-to things that we have to do. And now we're throwing our work from home expectations and scheduling into the mix as well. That can be challenging. I think it can be challenging. So yes, yes, Crystal, multiple calls, texts, that's funny. Yes, I've had more phone calls in the last 25 minutes than I've had all day. So now I want to get down to the nitty gritty. And so what is the formula for finding that work from home job and getting yourself all set, ready to go, working that work from home job, meeting all of the expectations and demands of your family and of your employer? So, Amy, I want to start with you. How do we do that?
Wow, that's such a complicated question. I, in my trainings, use a quiz. It's a 7-question quiz where, we kind of roll through different phases and help people identify, do they want to work for a company? Do they want to be a contractor? Or are they really more interested in becoming an entrepreneur?
Okay.
And then once you kind of pick that, what you should do is start the exploration process, right? I feel like everybody has like a dream in their head or a picture of what they want to do. Sometimes it's hard to commit to that because you feel like you're limiting yourself and what's available. And it's funny because like a powerful thing happens when you start to write down what you're really looking for. All of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere, right? Because when you start knowing what you're looking for, it's easier to see it and to find it. Whether you're searching online or you're just talking to a friend, like I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for an opportunity to do this. Next thing you know, those opportunities start popping up. So I would take a minute and really think about how many hours a week you're looking to work. whether you would like a structured work environment or a flexible work environment. And then think about things that you enjoy doing. Because if you can find something you love that fits into your schedule and fits into like how you're most productive in work, I was going to say it's not like you're going to work a day in your life, but it's, there's something powerful in doing something you love, right? There's something powerful in doing something that you love. So I would probably start there. Just that I know Erica mentioned it, that self-evaluation, but start with self-evaluation.
Okay. So Erica, talk us through a little bit more of the reality of what working from home and prepping yourself for working from home.
Yeah, I think I've got like end caps to Amy's piece. So the beginning is even like a step back further is like digital readiness. Do you know how to navigate websites? Do you know how to navigate new platforms and new tools? Like, where are you? Are you beginner, I need a lot of help? Are you like, I can get through? Or are you like, yeah, throw anything in front of me, I can totally do it? And that's important to know, because as you start to look for those jobs, you go into interviews, you're going to be asked those questions more than likely, especially in the remote workspace. You've got to be digitally ready. You have to be able to navigate those. And if not, YouTube can be your best friend. Like, go YouTube, how to use Slack, how to use project management tools, knowing the types of tools that are common in the remote workplace and being prepared to speak to those. Even if you've never used it, if you can just say, hey, I've taken a lot of tutorials on that, I'm ready to try it out for the first time. I can use Slack, Trello, ClickUp, whatever those tools are. That will already set you ahead, like being in that like modern tool era of what remote work looks like. Then the end cap to that, then Amy's piece comes in, right? Like that self-awareness, know what you need, know how to ask for it. The last piece is like where to go, right? Like then how do you execute? You're prepared, you've done all those things. Now where do you start looking? Obviously the tribe, the network, right? Like there's a lot of great services and organizations and corporations serving the community with remote work now, which is awesome to see. 10 years ago, that was not the case. Really, it's just been a cool past, 5 years to see how much that has come to be, even before COVID happened, right? I always say spouses are like the original digital nomads. Like we needed it before most other people were aware of the pressing need for that in careers. But think outside of the box. Yes, there's Indeed, LinkedIn, all of the community support. But there are so many companies out there. I think people go for the big logos, right? Like the 10 big logos that people are like, oh, I want to work here. I want to work here. There are millions of companies across the US who are in need of people. And so looking, searching by different types of business, enterprise, small to medium business, startups. Do you want to work for a consultant? It's like all of those different types of things. Like it really, you got to take ownership of it. No, it is nobody else's job. Even those of us who are in the space to help serve, it is nobody else's job to get you a job except yourself. And I think sometimes that's hard to hear. Because it's hard and there is a huge community of support. And so people are like, well, so-and-so didn't help me get a job, or I've been to 5 places and nobody's been able to help me get a job. That goes back to self-reflection. Like, what are you not asking right? What is the actual need? How can we help you better? It's a help us help you situation. So I think it's really, really important to keep in mind as you're out there as a part of your recipe for success.
That actually sounds great. And that sounds like a great segue into what we're going to be providing for our May 6th event, which is the next part of this virtual working from home, how to work from home successfully series that we have done. Is we're bringing some other additional experts into another event and offering another opportunity for participants to ask questions and talk directly to those that have been in this space for a long time and can help you build that toolbox and set yourself up for success in working from home. Let's see. I'm going to double check my questions. Stacy, did you have anything you wanted to add to the discussion at this point?
Well, it's just a comment. It will go to show how old I am as a military spouse. We talk about protecting your privacy, to remember what we used to have to write on our checks. I'm sitting there going, name, birth date, social security number, address, everything like Gosh, good thing we've pulled away from all of that. No, kind of the same thing for me. I remember it's been 3 years now with this organization, and I had never worked from home for someone else. But it's getting that whole mindset of, okay, what does my day look like? When am I available to take all the calls and texts that seem to come in, whether they're from your spouse or someone else? And it was ending the day. One of the hard things for me was feeling like, when does my obligation end? Am I available 24/7? And learning how to just go, you know what? It's 5 o'clock. It's a Friday. Close the laptop or shut the door. And that's when, and Amy was talking about that, if you've got that great space, you feel like it's time to work when you enter that space. And then when you can leave that space, you got to practice just leaving that behind and letting go of it. And I found that it took me a little bit to find my balance on how to do that from home. But that was very important, was having that space. It just puts your mind on, in that, okay, it's time to work. I'm in my workspace. So I think it's something you just have to really figure out. And training your spouse. My children are gone, but my spouse, because I do work from home, assumes that he'll kill me if he's watching this, that I am always available. So I'm not always available. Like, as he keeps calling, I'm like, I told him I was not going to be available today from 1 to 2. But it's just setting boundaries. And again, I just want to wrap up that truly understanding what it is you're looking for. If we all think that, if I could just work remotely, all my problems would be solved. And it isn't. You still have childcare problems. You still have to deal with all the needs of things that are surrounding you and facing you while you're at home. Because when you go to work, you can leave all your home problems at home, right? You're not looking at the pile of laundry or all the things that you think need to get done. You leave it all behind and you go to work, and then you get to come home and face it. Well, when you work from home, it's right there in front of you all the time. So understanding what it is you're actually really looking for, doing that assessment. What kind of income do you need? Is it, what is that income for? Is it to kind of just add on to the family, or is it a true requirement to help with house payments and cars? So it's really figuring out that. But you also have to know yourself too, because I can promise you this, at 25 years old, I would not be happy working from home. I needed that social aspect of something that was not military. So for me, working outside of the home gave me what I was looking for at that age. And now I'm like, oh, this is a dream come true. I love this opportunity that we've got with military spouse jobs to be able to be an independent contractor and work from home. So the assessment is very valuable to really determine what your needs are. So that's what I figured I'd share. There you go.
Thank you. Erica, I would like to have you take a few minutes and talk about your Instant Teams Academy and what that provides for those that sign up for that.
Yeah, so we just relaunched in March a program called Accelerate. And what we have found, we've been building remote teams, customer support remote teams, operational remote support teams for enterprise level companies, right? Walmart, Prudential, working with all kinds of organizations down to small business owners. But what we found was that readiness piece was often missing. The scope of military spouses are 20, 30 years in, might have 5 PhDs by that point, but have had limited opportunity to actually work or work remotely, or very young incoming, spouses who are just very eager and ready for their very first job. But again, might not have like that baseline of professional, this is how you work remotely, here's the expectations. So the Accelerate program that we just launched has like 4 different levels, and it's how to work remotely, how to train remotely, how to lead remotely, and how to grow remotely. And they're just really great like self-investment opportunities to understand what that means, understand what that looks like. Some of them have SHRM certifications. So in the HR space, like really putting forth, what that looks like and substantiating yourself in the remote workspace. So just really great opportunities to step in a little bit further into what does remote work actually look like and how can you become remote ready and be an expert at it.
Great. I like that because that helps you build your toolbox. That's providing that extra extra boost to your toolbox. Amy, could you tell us a little bit about the training that you provide? I know that you have a live training coming up in August that people can sign up for. Could you tell us a little bit about what that training provides?
Yes, so we have live training and we have learning management training that you can take 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we have work from home training in that platform. And then we also do a live training on work from home too. And that specific training is designed to help people who are thinking about working from home, not sure what they want to do. It's to help them understand different ways that they can look for work from home, and different opportunities that they should be looking at. So this is kind of really, hopefully by the time that you get done with this, if you're interested in working from home, before you go into the next training, if nothing else, you should know by now, okay, before I go to this next part, talking to employers, I should understand what I'm looking for, when I'm available or how much I'm available to work, and what are my goals in working, right? You want to go into this next piece with that. If you're not there yet, I'll give you our training link so that you can take this training and kind of maybe help yourself evaluate a little bit deeper what might be right for you.
Okay, and I would ask that both of you in our chat box provide a link for these opportunities for those that are here, and we will make sure that we populate our social media with those links as well. I did want to point out that on the Spouse Nation website, which I think Stacy will put that in the chat box right now, you can access the training for that Amy was referring to. You can access that training through the Spouse Nation website, as well as the Military Spouse Jobs website. So that's a great way to build that toolbox and get all of that information that you need to start forward and move forward with meeting your goals working from home. Does anybody out there, any of our attendees, have any questions that they have for Erica or Amy before I ask them for any saved rounds?
I've been following the chat box, and the main one we got was from about the Indeed.
Yes, which was a great question. I've been on Indeed, and I do know that some companies do keep their information confidential. So it's interesting. So, all right, if we don't have any questions right now, and this is not the only time you have to ask questions, you can go to the Spouse Nation Facebook page and ask a question. You can go to the Instant Teams page and ask questions. You can go to the Military Spouse Jobs page and ask questions. And I know that our experts would be more than happy to answer those questions and provide additional information. Oh, we did have one question. What are your recommendations for distractions as far as notifications on Slack or social media constantly? Who would like to take that one?
I say time blocking, making sure that you are setting work aside. If you know social media or Slack is a distraction, if you've got social media notifications popping up on your computer or your phone, silence them, turn them off so that they can't, right? And if you are in a time block mode where you can put devices that give you those notifications away from you, I'm a big fan of time blocking. I set time aside each day to work on specific projects, and when I am in my work zone, that's all I do. I just work on that. And then as soon as that's done, remember I said that 25, set a timer, 5 minutes. Maybe your break is jumping on social media to answer that, or jumping on Slack to answer those quick things. I even set time aside because I manage teams that are running on projects. I set time aside where I'm doing my projects, and then I even set time aside where I'm working with them on their projects. So they know when I'm available to work with them. And so I set specific days and times aside, and I said, you have my undivided attention at this time. Make sure that you come to me with your needs right now so that, I'm not holding you up. But yeah, just really just, I like to say, you have to multitask, but the best way to do it is to do a single task at a time.
I always like to tell people, ultimately, you are in control. You are 100% in control of what is popping up. And if you don't feel that you are, then you just got to go figure out your settings. So it's really important to know on Slack how to set your away time, how to, use the communications that there are in Slack, how to turn off your notifications, how to pause. There's things remote culture wise that, companies or teams can do. Like we use things that integrate into Slack. We're a 24/7 company. So people are working across the globe at all hours and times of the day. So how do you respect, that boundary? There's cool, like little bots and things that you can put into Slack where you can keep in your workflow and send messages, but you schedule them to send them to the person that you're trying to communicate for the next morning. So it's not hitting their inbox when they're out of hours. Ultimately, for me personally, I'm on my computer all day, right? Like full time, I'm here working. And so that's when I keep tabs on social. I do not have any social media apps on my phone. When I'm done with work for the day, I am done. And even personal social, like I just, for founder self-care, like I was just done. I was like, because it's constant, right? It's just constant. So nothing's on my phone. When I leave my computer, I am also done with social media for the day. And those are all personal decisions, right? But I think at the end of the day, those distraction type things are figure out your settings, figure out all the tools you use, how to turn them off, how to use them. And then just know if social is a distraction to you, you can delete Facebook from your phone, but leave it on your computer. It takes a while. Like you'll go, oh, Facebook, oh man, like I'm really conditioned and my app's not there anymore. Like that's kind of scary. You kind of realize quickly when you take it away, how much you're conditioned just to go to those things in like gaps of time. So it's given me a lot of time back and sanity.
I love that.
It is amazing how much time you can lose with those apps. But I think, one of the key things, and I keep hearing you ladies talking about it, and it comes down not just for remote work, but in everything we do in our life, time management is key. So you can end up, some days I just think it's 1 o'clock already. What did I get done? What happened to my day? So I am a very efficient. I like to know what I do when throughout the day. And I like when I get thrown off that, it kind of throws off my whole day. But time management is key. But I'm liking that whole removing Facebook from my phone. That's a good idea.
I know. I do want to hit on a comment that came into our question box. Crystal McFadden, who works with VetJobs, she asks, when we work from home, do you have a go-to setup or routine that help you to be most productive? I wear shoes, so my brain feels like it's on or going to work. So what are some of your suggestions for your go-to routines?
I've been working from home for 10 years. So to me, it's just like second nature at this point. Like I don't remember having to trick myself into doing it. And I'm an introvert. So the concept of being able to be in my own space and like in my own zone is all the motivation I need. Like, I'm like, all right, let's get to it. I'm ready to work for the day. But I do know a lot of people do use different tricks and tips and things to like get them in that mindset. So I don't have a really great answer for that other than I just love working remotely. And so like just be able to come down, get in the office, go, it works for me.
Awesome. Amy, do you have any thoughts?
So I'm a big fan of Miracle Morning, where you get up early and you do you make your bed, you exercise a little, drink your water. I always start my day early with things that I love. And I start my day, and then I time block my morning. I love to get up and work early before everybody else is on the computer at work, because then I get my time where I'm just solely focused on those projects, and I tackle my hardest projects first in the morning. So I will sit down, and if I've got a big brain thing that I need to do, my boys call it big brain. I don't know. I've picked it up now, the big brain things. But if I have something that I need to give it a lot of focus, attention, and concentration, I get up and I do it first thing in the morning when I'm fresh. And then I time block the rest of my day with easier or fun things, because otherwise you're just going to pick up. If you let your schedule control you, you're going to do all your fun things. You're not going to ever just get on and do the hard stuff. So I always say, let me get on, let me get it done so I feel super accomplished. And then the rest of the day I focus on the fun.
Oh, I'll share a tip. And it's kind of like, if you want to get your house cleaned, you invite someone over for dinner, right? If you want to keep yourself feeling made up and dressed and ready to go, schedule video calls, because it's amazing what you might look like when you get your little earbuds in and you're drinking your coffee and you're having this great conversation, but you actually feel better about your work and what you're doing when you're dressed and you've put on maybe a little bit of mascara or something and you've actually brushed your hair and pulled it out of a hair clip. So I now try to, when I have the opportunity, we could just be calling, but why not use the opportunity to do it as a video call? And I think it's a lot easier to engage with people, and I think you feel more connected. And for us, for this organization, probably the first, I'm going to say, year, I had to figure out who was who by their voice, because it was all these calls, and I'm like, oh, wait, oh no, I recognize Amy Rossi's on, and it's interesting how you can recognize people by their voice, and then all of a sudden you're going, oh wow, now I have to match faces and voices. So I love that we have a lot more opportunity for video calls. I think it's great. I think it being dressed, and I know some people probably think, yes, I'm going to live in my yoga pants. It's not all it's cracked up to be, honestly. I think I like to feel dressed and ready for the day. So but in full disclosure, I don't have any shoes on. So
I have slippers on as well. But I'm dressed. I'm dressed from head to toe.
I don't ever wear shoes in my house. So there you go.
That's the Japan in me coming out. We lived in Japan for a while. So I would just like to add that I do have a routine in the morning, much like what Amy spoke about. I get up. I am up early in the morning. I'm usually up long before my husband leaves the house. And I like to sit down with a cup of tea. And it's usually the last thing I do before I open up the laptop and I get ready for my workday. And I sit down, and I'm a list person, and write down my goals for what I want to get accomplished in that day. And instead of having a 25-minute block with a 5-minute break, my scheduling, a lot of it is task oriented. So I'm trying to get specific tasks done before I move on to the next task. And that just seems to be a system that I have found works best for me. And I did that when I was home taking care of the kids. I volunteered a lot. And so I would schedule my volunteer time according to the tasks I was trying to complete for that particular volunteer role over the course of my week. So that's kind of what I do. But yes, I get dressed every day. And my attitude is not, well, I'm working from home, so I don't really have to be put together that much. I do need to do that. And it's not because I need that to set my brain up for working from home. I just think it's the responsible way to approach your career. It's your career. That's how I own my career, is I prepare myself every day for what I'm going to do in my work. So thank you for that question, Crystal. I really appreciate it. Now, I wanted to give you ladies, we have about 7 minutes left, but I wanted to give you a chance, if you have any additional comments or saved rounds, that's a military term, sorry, ladies, to add to the discussion before we close things out in about 7 minutes. And I'll start with you, Erica.
I think we covered a lot of great stuff. I mean, we've really gone through a great overview of how to be prepared, what to look for, what not to do, how to ask for help. So I'd say my only last hack is to remember that self-care component. If you need to Instacart groceries, Instacart some groceries. If you need to ask somebody to come walk your dog while you've got a big meeting, ask for help. So just remember that there are people, even if you feel like you're alone and working remotely, there are still ways to feel connected and ask for help and be, brought in with the community around you.
Perfect. Thank you. Amy? Any last comment?
And no, I mean, like, we have hit on all the components of work from home, how to decide. And I think it's important that unilaterally, you've heard everybody pretty much say the same thing. You have to be structured and have a schedule if you're going to commit to working from home. If you're going to start work from home, you first have to understand all the technology that you'll need to work from home. And then second, understand what roles or components that you need to take on, understand pay, become familiar with taxes, hours, responsibilities, how to find that work. Again, it's all research. I think you have learned from all of us. I know I've been working from home over 20 years. Erica has been working from home for over, I think that we're giving you, this is all the stuff I wish I knew before I actually started working from home, because I stumbled quite a few times, out of the gate to kind of like get things going. And so, I found help from a lot of great places. At first, when I needed to structure to work from home, I used, there's a lot of services like Fly Lady and, other things that help you create structure, and keeping up with both, what you have to do in your home, but, creating routines. And I think that building routines based on your lifestyle is going to save you a lot. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not building those routines and you're not picking work that's suitable for your environment, you're not going to last, right? I started working from home. I didn't last working from home and went back to the office. And then the second time that I started working from home, I understood what I needed to do to be successful. So, and I too am an introvert. So for me, makes it so that I'm like bubbling with energy all the time, because, my husband gets home and I'm like, because, I've been home energizing all day and he's been at work doing stuff. Right. So it just, it just becomes kind of like those self-awareness, building routines, becoming self-aware, and then executing in ways that are appropriate for you.
Thank you. I want to thank both of you ladies for your time today and for all of the great information that you have provided for us today. And I know that the participants are thankful as well. I know that this was an eye-opening discussion for myself. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Stacy to close out our session.
We'll close it out. It was a lot of great information, so thank you, ladies. Both Erica and Amy will be joining us on May 6th from 1 to 3. We also have Devin Drake from Boldly will be our keynote speaker, so we're excited to have her. And Elizabeth O'Brien from the Freedom Learning Group will be joining us as well. And then there'll be some networking opportunities. So watch for the link that will be coming out for the May 6th event. This event will be recorded, or I should say has been recorded, so we'll be able to reshare that. If you do have any other questions, reach out on the social media through all of our different organizations, and we will get back to you and answer those for you. And from Melinda and myself from Spouse Nation, thank you for joining us on our first live event. So we're very excited to bring this to you, and we appreciate all your time you've given us today. So thank you, ladies, and thank you for all of those that are out there watching us. Have a great
Bye, everyone.
week. Bye-bye.